So you're interested in the graph of desire. Fantastic. You've come to the right place. What you're about to get is Terence Blake of Agent Swarm breaking down for us not just the graph of desire, but also its relation to the question, what is philosophy? And specifically the way that that question is developed in the work of Deleuze and Guattari. So, yeah, Lacan and Deleuze? How is this possible? Well, Terence Blake is someone who's been studying French theory for the last 40 years. And his approach is Deleuzo-Lacanian or Lacano-Deleuzian. Fascinating, right? You wanted to learn more? Well, the best way to learn more is to subscribe to his blog, Agent Swarm, both on a blog and also YouTube channel, where he does other stuff like exegetical or translations of various French texts that we otherwise would not have access to. We love Terence. You're going to love Terence if you didn't already. If you want to know more about him, we've got other interviews with him up. And with that, I'm about to close this out. I just want to give you a quick reminder. Theory Underground is a lecture course, ongoing research seminar, and book publishing platform by and for workers with earbuds trying to understand the situation. If you want to get more involved, stick around until the end of this video. Watch the PSA. Take notes. See how you can get involved. We've got a whole new framework in the works. We've got lots of really exciting stuff coming in 2025 for our lectures and our courses. The whole new schedule is going to be announced very soon. So go to theoryunderground.com to check out all of that. Now sit back and enjoy. All right. Welcome back, Theory Underground. Terence, how's it going, man?
I'm going great. I sprained my ankle at the end of summer and with a little fracture. So that meant I was confined to my home with no real possibility of movement. So I really dug into philosophy.
I'm sorry to hear about the injury and excited to hear that you got to dig into some philosophy. So today we're here to talk about the graph of desire and what is philosophy. I don't even know where to start with this one because the graph of desire makes me want to cry and hide under my bed. Like, you know, like when a dog tucks tail and runs, like that's how I feel. Okay, so there we go.
Well, it used to scare me, but now I'm within it. I'm all over it.
Cool. So what do you want to say? Do we want to put the image up on the screen? Do you want me to put it up or something while we get into
Well,
it?
I don't know. If I point out as I talk, as we go up, we're going to do some circuits, but basically go up the graph of desire as applied to philosophy. So I'm calling it, in fact, it shouldn't be called the graph of desire. It's like the problem with titles that you don't want a mouthful for the title. So in fact, it's the graph of demand, desire, and drive. Because demand is the lower part, desire is the middle part, and drive is the top part. So I want to apply it to the question, what is philosophy? And the reason I want to do that is when Deleuze and Guattari's last collaboration book, What is Philosophy, was published in 1995, I bought it straight away, but I didn't like it very much. But some passages just stuck with me over time. And finally, I decided that, in fact, there's a very Lacanian ring to the basic project, the way they express it in the introduction and in the conclusion. And that made me rethink the whole development of their evolution. in relation to Lacan, and I saw that people just weren't seeing how close they were, and that what is philosophy is about the drive of philosophy, and just for the first paragraph. And I must admit, I was crystallized in my impressions before I started getting down and working on them in the July course we did on Seminar 11 with Todd McGowan.
Okay.
So I can recommend that course, and that's a key book. And at a certain point, I think around that time, I saw an interview that you did with Todd, where he said that he read the beginning of what is philosophy, and where they say philosophy is the invention of concepts. He just crossed that out. And I thought, yes, but in fact, if he got on to read up to the end of the book, they cross it out themselves. And if you go up the graph of desire, you would see from the very beginning that the title is impossible for them to use, because what is questions are forbidden as being sort of essentialist questions. What the only questions are who, what, where, when, how, why, and what only in that context. So event questions. So if you read the book to the end, or if you're a Lacanian, you see it's crossed out, or in fact it's barred, and you see the bars everywhere. So I want to help people to see, get to the point where they put on Lacanian or Deleuzian spectacles, and they see bars all over the place.
Okay, so that if you actually take Deleuze and Guattari's "What is philosophy" to the end, you'll find out that the question itself is impossible for them from their standpoint. So they're actually going to cross out.
Yes.
So that the formulation at the very beginning of where they say that it's the invention of concepts, they end up undermining their own definition.
Yes. At the end, they say that they're talking about non-conceptual concepts or unthinking thought. So the part of the there's shadow concepts that are part of our 1 foot in philosophy and 1 foot in chaos. And so that's why I did a blog post where I said that I didn't expand on it. I hope to expand on it today, where I want to move from what is philosophy, which my answer is Lacan's matheme for the fundamental fantasy, S barred punch A. And I want to move to the question, what is philosophy barred, or what is barred philosophy, which I claim to be the barred subject, barred S, punch or diamond, barred A. So
what's the barred A again?
The barred A is the other, that is God, the world, the self. That
like the big A,
is,
the big
A,
O,
yes.
Other. Okay.
But the incomplete, the other without another, the incomplete A. And the little A is the little objet petit a, or object A, which I think they're trying to define rather that in what is philosophy. And it's I'm taking everything in terms of philosophy, what I call noesis. So it's the concept little a that is driving them once they go beyond academic philosophy and they speak in their own name. And I claim Lacan is doing the same thing.
Okay. Are you following, Nance? I'm like,
maybe
This is my introduction.
maybe very far behind, but
okay, good. Okay, yeah. I think I'm following. Yeah.
That's the sort of endpoint. So it should be
Okay.
easier going up the graph and explaining each symbol.
Okay.
So will I begin there? Here's the graph of desire. It looks complicated, but it's, in fact, if you know the basic registers of Lacan, it's going up from what we are, which I'll call the given, but I'm going to put that into question, obviously, as I'll put everything into question that I'm doing. The imaginary goes up to the symbolic, to desire, and then we're into a relation to the real. So that's easy. The imaginary, the symbolic, and the real, everybody knows. The imaginary begins with the mirror stage, where we're sort of blob, we're an uncoordinated infant, and we see an image in something that functions as a mirror. It could be a real mirror, it could be just another person, and we take on an image that gives us beginnings of a bodily a body schema, and we take ourselves as that, and that constitutes there's a I, little I, little a is not the object little a, but it's the image, the ideal image, which is also called of the self, which is called also the ideal ego, that is used to constitute ourselves as conscious identities, as egos. So in terms of philosophy, I want to begin at the bottom. It's the barred subject. We are split by language. We have a bar. We're not a full-blown, fully present subject, fully present to ourselves, the way Descartes imagined it. We're split by language, and so we have a conscious and an unconscious. That's the bar des. But for the purposes of this talk, I'm applying this to our relation to philosophy. So I'm going to say that the bar des is the subject marked by the concept. We're taking one particular type of signifier, and it's something that happens. You could say everybody is marked by the concept, but there are sort of affinities. So from early on, you will have an affinity for thinking in terms of concepts, or thinking in terms of images, or in terms of musical notes, or in terms of martial arts postures. You see that in very young children. So there's this subject marked by the concept. We just sort of, it's not necessarily being an intellectual or an introvert, although it could be related to that. It's just our way of being in the world, of relating to the world that we favor. There's something about us that we think in terms of concepts. Other people might see it before us, and we might take ages before we ourselves realize it. And when we're on that sort of development of realizing that we see things in terms of concepts, we may instinctively or later quite consciously identify with people who in our own mind are thinkers. So or philosophers or professors of philosophy, but it can be just thinkers that are in our milieu, in our family, or that we see on TV, or that we see in writing books. We read their books and we form an ideal image of what I could be like. I'm model of myself is I'm a thinker. I think. I probably do lots of other things. And that will enter into my definition. M is moi. I chose it, the French version, because the big A is A for autre, other, but it also makes me think of academia and academic. So I just like the French version of the graph. Anyhow, that makes, because we've already been a sort of concept heavy type of person, and we are identified with sort of philosophy type or thinker type role models, that enters into our definition of our own ego, and it's in relation with the ego ideal, which is big I, big A. It's big A because it's in the culture, it's in the symbolic. We've sort of found role models or identified with thinkers, and we've filled it out with whatever we can pick up in the social, cultural, symbolic aspects that we're exposed to or that we can find out. So the ego ideal is what society thinks a philosopher or a thinker is. It could be, people could think that Dawkins and Sam Harris are big thinkers, or they could think that Žižek and Nick Land are big thinkers. So it's always a selection, and you have more affinity given how you experience your being a thinker, and how you've modeled yourself. You're going to make a selection of what the social images of a philosopher are. Is that okay so far?
Yeah, I just want to clarify. So the ideal ego is where you're pointing at signification, right? On the other side,
the ego is little I, little a.
Okay.
That's the imaginary.
Okay. And the reason it matters to me is just, I think a lot of times people critique the message rather than realizing that it's the ideal ego that a person resonates. So let's just say a person doesn't like something Theo Varn says. Is that his name? Nancy?
Theo Vaughn or Eric Varn?
No, I crossed it too. Can you imagine like the personality, the personality of Theo, but the brains of a Derek? Yeah, that'd be great. No, but no. Anyway, the point is like people at a deeper level are connecting with the figure, and that's why it matters. Is attacking them at the level of an utterance that they said, in a lot of ways endears their audience to them, because the person just likes them at the level of like there's something there working at the level of their ideal ego.
Yes, that resonates. I identify with that, not necessarily with everything, but I identify with what they're saying, with the ideas, I can see them as ideas at that stage. I identify with that. I see the world like that. So, and not just that I identify. That's what thinking is. That's a real thinker. He's deep. He's going deeply into things, and I'm like that. And at the same time, I want to be like that and be recognized. So the little IA is my self model, and the big IA is what that corresponds to in terms of socially recognized roles that can exist. Yes, you could be a writer or a university professor, or just somebody who joins communities and has really good ideas. Given there's the big A, has to be enriched by moving up to the big A. It means I can argue for them as well. I can give reasons. I'm fluent and plausible in my ideas, and that's the sort of thing. I don't stutter and rub my nose like Žižek, because that's not in the normal vision of what an academic is. I'm fluent. Yes.
So recently, one of my kids showed me some YouTube video about kids that were developing like psychosomatic like tics. Like they were like and it was sensationalized, but that there's some truth in it too. But like kids are developing Tourette's from watching too much TikTok and shit. And I think I mean there's probably a lot going on, but I think part of it is because like there are some creators who like celebrate this facet of their identity, and then they get popular by like talking about like it's important to have representation for, you know, non-typical people or whatever. And so it becomes this big thing, and then you have a bunch of little kids, especially during like COVID, everyone was on their phones, so like a bunch of young people just watching people with tics. And so you have kids who don't actually have tics, but they like develop tics. And so it's modeling and mirroring and stuff like that.
Yes.
But it doesn't always have to be negative. It can also be constructive.
This is
it
like
develops you.
we pick up on the dialect of the people we associate with the most, right? Like, and that's why it's like this whole like cultural Jim Crow that's going on right now, where people want to keep every culture contained into like this little area, and like it's not allowing the profusion and like and sort of mimicry of actual living culture to occur. Yeah, it's why it drives me crazy. But
well, yes, it's not like we're talking about the ego and so on, which from a sort of dogmatic Buddhist or somebody into Oriental religions in a sort of dogmatic, narrow-minded sort of way. It's not ego is bad. There are, as you said, a profusion. It's useful for development. So it's play. You learn from play, and by identifying with images and models. And if you don't have that, you can't. There's no way you can go directly up to the drive, the noetic drive. You're just a wolf child or something like that. So you have to go through those stages. It's best not to be fixated and immobilized on any one of them. And in fact, you're doing it all the time. So my argument is that this is something that you go through over and over again. So in fact, it's dynamic. And probably you would have to have one, and then next to it another one, and then next to it another one, and it goes on. And it never stops. Because if it stopped, it's like do not pass go directly to jail, and you would be back down here or here again. So it's in favor of play, and that's what helps you go through the stages. So yes. There are pathological identifications that just stick to you and don't even correspond to anything much inside you. But identifications are not evil in themselves.
hello, beautiful listener. I see you. Just kidding. I can't. But I have to interrupt this just really quick to make my own advertisement, my very own, the one that says subscribing, liking, commenting. It actually makes a really big difference. So even if you're just on the free side, shout out to you. Thanks for doing it. Make sure to subscribe and all that. Especially people on the podcast, make sure to say something nice in the reviews. It actually really helps. And I need reviews on every platform, all right? Because I just hate to say it, it matters, you know? I try not to chase the almighty algorithm, but also I don't want to have all of this beautiful content go to waste. And so I'm trying to walk a fine line between quality and quantity. And I come out way heavier on the side of quality, as you can obviously see we do here. But come on, let's push that subscribe button, let's smash that like button, teach the algorithm what you actually care about. All right. And then maybe it'll show it to other people. That's great. All right, let's get back to it.
Even correspond to anything much inside you. But identifications are not evil in themselves.
It's when we allow them to ossify and act like they are like some deep cosmic something. Yes. Okay.
You've already understood something. It's the world. These are my little notes to. They don't correspond to what the Lacan says. It's when you identify with your opinions as well. I've got that's my opinion, and I'm entitled to it. You've got your opinion, I've got my opinion, and so on. And in my opinion, you should dress this way and not in any other way. And this is what we should do about migrants and so on. You're in the realm of opinions, which are very simplified and in small number. It's not a profusion. It's a small number of cliches and stereotypes that you take for thinking. Mm-hmm. Then moving up, something happens, a miracle happens. Some would say castration happens, or the name of the father happens, and you're no longer limited to just fixed identities that give form to your chaos and simplify your chaos or your complexity. You've got your well, in this case, we're talking about your thinking within the field of the other, of the big other, and its treasure trove of signifiers. So that can be that I'm a thinker, I've got right opinions or good opinions. That's part of who I am. So I know who are people like that. They're, for example, taking academic philosophy, philosophy professors, especially those who write books and make interesting videos. And so I want to study, work hard. This is really good. I go to university or I study at home, and I begin to master the knowledge, the signifiers. I read the books. I understand and break down the arguments. I can give reasons for everything, and that sort of acts. Well, this is a retroactive causality, but we don't need to talk about that. That determines a set of key ideas. We're no longer in fixed ideas and stereotypes. They're not just obsessions. They're just key ideas. I mean, I can't talk to anyone who doesn't know about AI and startups and making money, or I can't talk to anyone who doesn't know anything about class structure and where value comes from. Things like that, or it can be in science. It's just not worth talking to anyone who hasn't mastered quantum theory and relativity, because they can't enrich the academic research communities that I'm interested in. So you've mastered stuff and you've boiled it down. You've done your work of synthesis, and you've probably displayed mastery enough to be validated by yourself, by a degree in the university, by community recognition that goes beyond just saying, this guy's really intelligent, that's the smartest person who just walked into the room, or a big loudmouth, run. Anyhow, you've got into some sort of status. You've mastered your symbolic capital to the point where it's objectively existing. You do know the contents of some books, and you can talk about it reasonably. Yes?
So it becomes like I don't know, I guess I want to say reified, but that's not what I'm trying to say. But it becomes like externalized, like
it's externalized, objectivized or objectivated.
Okay, yeah.
It's not as reified as the previous stage when you're in the ideal ego with its validation of your opinions. You've opened yourself up to other opinions, and you've begun to see the for and against, the advantages and disadvantages, and able to argue without instantly closing down the conversation. And that's at that point that you can say what is philosophy in a sort of argued out sense. Sorry.
And that is because you've moved from this like imaginary into like this symbolic that is like in a sense real.
It's real. It's out there in the world. It's in institutions. It's in books and libraries. Or now it's on YouTube or TikTok. So it's something real that can be studied and mastered or not, or open up a big field of work or play to do to know more and more. So that's where, as well, it's marked here, the voice, where in university and in other places, you're encouraged not just to say in an essay, well, there's this view and this is why it's good, this is why it's bad, there's this other view, and so on. You're encouraged to give your own opinion, but this time it's not just a personal opinion, it's a worked out opinion. You're choosing what seems reasonable and in the field of possibilities and of really existing arguments and points of view. So that's where I've marked as my keyword here, worldview. This is the sort of thing Lacan often criticizes philosophy, and he almost always in the same sentence and or just after talks about it as having a worldview, and says, thank God I don't have a worldview. But I think he did when he was younger. I'm saying that, but I have to, well, I've already qualified it by saying that you go through it over and over again. And so sometimes when he's tired, he'll give a quick and dirty answer, and it'll be a worldview type answer. Because he's been through it all in his seminars, in his écrit, and so he'll just tell you, I did that look at the function of field of speech and language, or something like that. Page 80, the subversion of the subject, page 834 in my écrit. Sometimes he does that, but in the seminar that we studied with Todd, it was very interesting. For me, most of his what he was saying was up here, but in the question and answer session, they brought him down to here. It was sort of questions on doctrine, and either he would make fun of them or avoid them, or he would give a doctrinal point, or he would say why the doctrinal point was not relevant. So I remember a couple of times I asked him about psychological development, and he said, what I'm putting forward is not a psychological development with phases or stages. So this is sort of logical time as well. We correspond phenomenologically to our experience of life. insofar as we're interested in thinking, but it doesn't have to be taken just in that sense of chronology. Because I got here, I can already call into question what we've done so far. It's in the light of all these ideas and this knowledge and these arguments that we can even start here, because starting with the barred subject, it's not really a raw experience. Oh, I'm a barred subject. It means you've been up at least around here and come down, and you have enough concepts to realize that I'm a barred subject, that I'm a living, breathing animal type thing, and I see things in terms of concepts, because I mean in terms of language, but I'm limiting myself to concepts in this talk. So because there's no raw experience, and people who take it in a simple developmental sense are apt to make that sort of mistake. Even the mirror stage is not just a baby looks in the mirror and feels inadequate and then thinks in jubilation, that's what I am. It's already been influenced by the parents and whatever exposure to language it has had. So I think Lacan went through a phase where it was sort of almost a biological imprint that happened. And later on, when he came to insist on the primacy of the signifier, he saw and said that it played a role in the earlier stage. So it's not to be taken just at face value. This level is already present in kickstarting the path of philosophy or of noesis. So that's good. You're expressing yourself in your own voice, the way your supervisor or the way the academy or the way your community with its gurus or rabbis or priests or whatever, or directors of laboratories or at the manager at work is willing to say, oh yeah, you already always bring a good contribution because you give your own opinion. This is not just off the top of my head. I can give a reasoned argument. I can give reasons. So where am I? So that's the big other, and it quilts you into key reasons, key ideas that you have about the world. And here's where I'm going to move up to the punch. And this is where I want to say my aphorism. Everybody talks about the quilt, but what about the punch? There, you don't get to them. So quilting is good. That's where the free flow of everything you've been exposed to is just stopped, frozen into key points, key ideas, sort of the beginnings of what will become a paradigm a little higher on. They're theoretical frameworks that you've mastered, and you can see them as theoretical frameworks. They're not sort of like compulsory glasses that you wear and you just see the world in that way. You're getting some sort of freedom. You say, well, from a Marxist point of view, we could say this, but it ignores the unconscious. So maybe we need to add something, and so on. Or from Einstein's point of view, this is possible, but if we add in quantum theory, we'll get something totally different. So things like that. I'm taking academic examples, but it goes on in ordinary life all the time. There are people who just are glued to their ideas. They can't even see that they have ideas. They just see the world that way. And there are other people who can see their own ideas and the ideas of other people, and they've got some leeway, even if ultimately they're quilted in a particular way. And that's when it all comes down to brass tacks, that's the way it is. I can see the other points of view, but that's what I'm going to. That's what I'm going to eat. That's the sort of book I'm going to read, the sort of film I'm going to see. That's the sort of career I'm going to choose. So moving up, this is why he's got voice, but it's not really a singular voice. It's a particular possibility in the field of possibilities of the treasure trove of signifiers that you've developed in your own way. So higher up is the line of desire. It's very interesting. Deleuze talks about that. He claimed that it was only with the work he did with Guattari that he could speak in his own name. So he had his own philosophical ideas, and they were already going strange. In fact, some of them were going up here. I'll come to that. But there was at least the beginnings of a desire to say things that nobody else could say. They're not just possibilities. They're things that weren't possible before, but you've created that possibility. You're feeling the lack in the discourses and views that you're exposed to and that you've mastered. You feel the need, or you feel the desire, in fact, for something more. So that's where you get to desire in relation to the fundamental fantasy, which I'm taking it to be not just a world view, but in the context of philosophy, your own philosophical system. It's sort of like the idea that Heidegger said that one philosopher just thinks one idea all his life. You could think he was an obsessive conspiracy theorist, but in fact, no, he's got an idea that is part of the way he relates to concepts. This is where we've got little d is desire, and we've got Bardes, punch, little a. So the punch is a complex operator. It's, for me, more powerful than the bar. You've got the wedge, which is and. You've got the vel, which is either or. You've got less than, and you've got more than, or inclusion is included in and includes. All that, because Lacan sometimes explains it in terms of set theory. So it's a complex relation. It's not the subject understands that he or she is marked by the concept, and so is never going to be able to know everything. That it's not about knowledge. Knowledge is this part of the graph. It's something, you could say, more or less, or it's something different. And that's, in the case of philosophy, the process of thinking around a sort of concept that is somewhere here, which is not marked because it's the concept little a. And you're trying for a grid, a system that can express that concept, but you can never, in fact, actually capture it. You don't exactly know what it is. You will create a system. There's William Blake's formula, I must create a system or be enslaved by another man's. That's William Blake from the 19th century. So you've got a philosophy that will last sometimes for years, or maybe some people only ever have one philosophical system. But the reason for it is this thing, the concept little a, that is not something that you can attain. it's like the definition of desire in general for Lacan. It's a lack. It's a conceptual lack that keeps you going all the time. Is that okay? That's desire. And then we move up to a further level. And that's where we recognize that whatever we do, the system is barred. The big A is barred. It's just incomplete. That's the way, because it's part of the relation to the real. It can never capture the real. It can never capture the object, little a, and it can never invent a concept powerful enough to capture what makes me think. My concept, little a. So that's I would say that's most philosophy after. Well, you could say Heidegger was there. You could say Wittgenstein or Nietzsche was there, but it's sort of in continental philosophy after the 60s and 70s. That's where everyone is at. That's where Lacan and Derrida and Foucault and Deleuze and Žižek are. There's a fundamental incompleteness. So we don't have a fundamental fantasy as such. We have a fundamental incompleteness that we can express in terms of a system. We can try over and over again to systematize it, but we know and we say that that's never going to be it, that what we're trying to convey is something else that we get to relate to if we see beyond the actual system that we're putting forward, but sort of the movement in the system. And then the highest level is, because of that fundamental incompleteness that we've gone through over and over again, we come to identify with, if that's the right word, with what is driving us. It's the drive that gives the energy and the push for the desire of philosophy, for the work on philosophy in the academy, for the seeming beauty and utopia of being a thinker. That's ultimately at that level. It's no longer knowledge or the symbolic, but it's not outside the symbolic. Strictly speaking, probably you should make a fold there instead of putting it up higher. So you're still, as they say, castrated. You're still in the symbolic order, but this is the level of jouissance, of affect and libido as driving you. So that's the drive, which I'm considering only in philosophical terms. It can be caught in pathological formations anywhere, and lots of philosophy can be pathological in one way or another. So totalitarianism is there, up with the incomplete other. Maybe neoliberalism functions with a recognition of the fundamentally complete other, but it's trying to operationalize it with values that come from socially accepted norms, or what the aims of work or the economy are. So they can have some recognition of the incompleteness. Everybody does, in fact. So, in fact, we're all the time everywhere on the graph, but some things are coming more to the fore than others. And I've done everything, I think. So I was reading just a couple of days ago, there's a new book of Deleuze's lectures on Spinoza that just came out in French. Well, it's a bit of a rip-off because all the recordings of the classes, of the seminars of Deleuze, plus the French transcription and the English translation are available for free on the Deleuze Seminars Purdue University site. So, but still good to have a book. And I opened up at random, and he was talking about learning the ethics by heart. He said it makes no sense to learn Kant's Critique of Pure Reason by heart, but you could learn the ethics by heart, and it would serve you in everyday life. Anytime anything happened or anytime anybody said something, you would say, what proposition in the ethics does it refer to? So I would say the same for the graph of desire. You can, it's not the last word of Lacan's teaching, but it's something, once you go through it, it becomes almost common sense, and you can use it in any situation to see what's happening, why are we not understanding each other, who needs to go further in what direction, and what am I missing out on that I need to work on to get to a higher level of comprehension or theory. So that
Thank
gets
you,
me
Terence.
to that. I've done this and I've done that.
All right. We're basically at time now, and it's too bad, because what I'd like to do is go over my understanding of it and then have you correct me, because I'm pretty sure I'm wrong. And so, but for right now, what we'll do is promise to come back to this soon, because we got to bring the next person on. So thank you, Terence. I'm really looking forward to going over this and taking some notes. We had a lot of really great questions in the chat. Maybe we'll take a look at those and bring them back in for part 2 on the graph of desire.
Okay, great.
And we'll be right back after this. Thank you.
We cannot do direct revolution, but the only way to lay the foundation for it is to do what you are doing to move the underground. It's a theoretically correct title.
Welcome to Theory Underground, a place for workers with earbuds who are tired of letting others read and think on their behalf, slipstreaming our way into an understanding of the situation that short-circuits the deadlocks of our moment.
Research at Theory Underground focuses on what is most important for understanding our current situation: theory of the subject, capital, time-energy theory, critical media theory, CMT, and the most essential critiques necessary for understanding why the theory, ideology, and common sense of influencers left to right misses the mark.
Theory Underground is coming to a city near you. What that has meant in the last year is traveling across the United States, into Canada, and then all over Europe to promote our books, courses, and ideas related to time energy and underground theory. You've been reading Underground Theory.
I'm a publisher and an editor. I run and review books. Literally, it's my living. This is the best edited collection I've ever read.
Okay, picture this scene. America, early 2021. An Amazon warehouse worker arises from the emerging underground theory internet scene to create spaces for untimely topics and concerns that are too often neglected or kept in isolation today. Joined by a revolving cast of underground theorists, academics, and critics, he establishes what will become Theory Underground, a teaching, research, and publishing platform by and for working class intellectuals, autodidacts, and academics who want to do more than they're able to do within the confines of academia. That warehouse worker's name is David McKerracher, and his book Timenergy is his first major contribution to the world of theory. It was recently reprinted with a foreword by none other than Slavoj Žižek, who also contributed to Theory Underground's latest book.
My Bible, it's an excellent book.
A collection of essays called Underground Theory.
What you just heard is an excerpt from the Strange Exiles podcast, episode 23, where Bram from Strange Exiles interviewed me and Mikey. For those who don't know, Mikey is the author of the Dangerous Maybe blog. We are publishing one of his books here shortly at Theory Underground. He's also a lecturer at Theory Underground, and he's someone I've been friends and a collaborator with for over 10 years. But Most importantly for you all, he's a fantastic lecturer, and it's a crime that he has to do wage labor right now. One of the long-term goals of Theory Underground has been now for a couple of years to hashtag free Mikey. That is something that I've been really pushing, but first I had to get freed from wage labor, which was achieved this year. That's right. Thanks to my monthly seminar subscribers, I was able to quit Amazon and do Theory Underground full time. Now I'm announcing the next big phase of the plan, which is the Mikey Down seminar. What monthly subscribers to the Mikey seminar are paying for is a survey of philosophy, including deep dives into Žižek, Land, Lacan, Baudrillard, Bataille, Lyotard, and ultimately the whole history of philosophy.
We're trying to build like this ongoing seminar, right? And that's what I really like about this thing, where, you know, if I'm teaching a main text, that's something I got to focus on. I got to really, but the seminar thing, we can do this stuff all the time where we dive deeper into concepts, we dive deeper into certain, you know, sections of books or whatever, and we can really do this nuanced stuff.
I think that there's probably no better way for us to accelerate our learning in these areas than by slipstreaming Mikey. And that has been my belief for years and years and years now. It's official. You're able to help out. You're able to get involved. You're able to benefit directly from liberating him from wage labor. Get on it right now. Do it. Just go. Stop what you're doing. Go click the button. Subscribe. This is what you do. Subscribe to him. If you're already signed up for the ongoing Theory Underground seminars, then that's the ones that I do with my wife, Anne. Though that's getting an upgrade, which means that I will be doing one session per month that is just me, and then I will also be doing the ones with Anne, which are a crash course in sociology, anthropology, the social sciences, and ultimately Marx, Heidegger, Levinas, Bourdieu, imminently critiquing pop psychology, sociology, self-help, and ultimately the doxa of our time. But if you would like to be a subscriber to both Mikey's seminar and the seminar that the Snellgrove McKerrachers are doing, then the best way is to become a tier 4 subscriber, or you can be a tier 2 subscriber to each of us. The reason this matters is because tier 2 is like pretty much the best bang for your buck. It gives you huge discounts on all of the courses that we do. But if you can't afford it, tier 4 is amazing because it gives you tier 3 access at both Mikey's seminar and ours.
And finally, not everybody has time to be part of these ongoing research seminars, and they just want to fund the paid content for the YouTube and podcast. And so thank you so much to our patrons over at Patreon. They're the ones funding all the free stuff. So big thank you to Bert, Marilyn, Carl, Sahil, Zozandra, Nikolai, Darian, Tyler, and Mandeep, and all the other wonderful patron people, Patreon people. And thank you to all the other wonderful Patreon people. Thank you so much to all of you patrons, and also to the special subscribers and the paying subscribers. Oh my god, it's just so awkward. Thank you, patrons. Okay. And to all the other wonderful patrons, thank you so much, all you patrons. And also a special thanks to the subscribers on the YouTube side, as well as the paying subscribers over at Substack. Why can't we do this? Fuck. You guys,
Please.
just thank you. Thank you, everyone, for making this bullshit possible. Thank you to the subscribers. You did so good. Thanks, guys.